Now let us discuss a few terms related to the first chapter of 10th standard physics, the fourth chapter. The chapter starts with the term rigid body. Now what do we mean by the rigid body? A rigid body is something on which you apply external forces and the body does not deform itself on the application of the external forces. A body which retains its dimensions even if the external forces are acting over the body, such a body is what you mean by the rigid body. Now when you discuss this rigid body, there are few terms. For example, assume a force F is acting on this rigid body. The point where the force is being exerted, that point is what we mean by point of action of force. Now if you draw a line along the direction of the force and passing through that point, then you call it as the line of action of force. And another term related to this is the principle of transmissibility. Principle of transmissibility. So what does it mean? Assume you are applying a force F at this point P. I can consider another point along the line of action of the force, somewhere here. Let that point be N. Since that point is not moving, or that particular part of the body is not moving, I can assume there are two forces acting at that point, one in this direction and in the opposite direction. Why opposite direction? Because the particle at that point remains at rest. So if one force is acting, I should also assume an opposite force acting at that point, which makes the body to keep at rest. Let the magnitude is F. Now since you are exerting an external force at the point P, it does not cause any change in dimension of the rigid body. So the magnitude of the force which I have assumed to be acting at N and also at the P must be same. Otherwise it would have caused a change in dimension. Now I can assume this my external force which is acting at P is getting cancelled by the opposite force which is acting at N. Since the magnitude is same, direction is opposite. And I have only one force which is remaining at N in the same direction of the external force. Now that I can also argue that is the force which makes the rigid body to move in this particular direction. In other words, my point of application force has changed along the line of action of force. So this principle is what you mean by the principle of transmissibility, that for a rigid body, the external force can be assumed to be acting at any point on the line of action of the force, and it does not cause any change to the movement of the rigid body.